we just assume we lack something. And then because of this, assumption that's never been questioned, we just go out toward objects and we seek this fulfillment that just never seems to come, because we never questioned whether that underlying lack actually held any validity. So we begin to question that lack, the validity of that feeling of lack. Do we really lack something? Do I really need something to fulfill me? Or is that just what I have been taught? And I found that to be sort of fundamental throughout this whole thing, because thoughts can come in and say whatever they like. They can give you the best non-dual descriptions and stuff. And that just won't fulfill you. You have to confront that underlying belief with a question like, who am I? And do I lack something? And if I lack something, who is it that lacks this thing?
And that is what the limited pseudo-self is. It's the perception of lack.
Yes.
Which comes from this belief in separateness. If I'm disconnected from the rest of this infinite universe, then I must be deficient in so many ways. I must lack so many things. I must not be whole. I'm not complete. I'm not fulfilled.
Yes.
And we have this universe in which to explore the things we feel we lack, the things we feel will complete us and therefore bring us home. You're listening to the Nonduality podcast. This is Nick Higham from nisargayoga.com. And here with me is Colette Davie, whose Instagram handle is That Beyond Duality.
This idea is also what makes you feel small and vulnerable. It's not even just about the lack. It's also about the fact that you feel constantly that you are not. There's constantly this misalignment. Somehow I am not what I believe I should be. And I mean, some could say that's like an egoic thing, but I think it's an intuition. This concept of myself that I have somehow is not gelling well, because it's not right. Why do I feel small? Now I seek to make myself bigger, join groups, succeed in life. When just go and question that concept of yourself as small. That's an intuition telling you you are not small. It's all very beautiful. And the fact that you can go 25 years trying to seek happiness in stuff, and you just go outward, and then eventually you question to a degree that you just end up right back where you were before, but something has shifted, something has changed, but you can't say what it is. If you try to say what it is, you lose it.
Yes, and nor is it about fulfillment, because the idea of being fulfilled is based on the assumption of lack.
Yes.
So it's not like a point in time is reached where you become whole. You become complete, you become big, you see that you were never small, you were never lacking anything. It's all here now. All of it is here now. Anything you can imagine is born into existence through your very imagining.
Yes.
This infinite capacity to create out of yourself as this one life.
Yes, and simultaneously the fact that you just don't have any lack at all. Yeah, it's very interesting because, I had this concept of enlightenment before. The character had this concept, and I thought, when you're enlightened, you're not even going to touch any of those aspects of desire or lack. The mind is going to shut itself off, and it's going to be this enlightened guru, and that's how life is going to be. And it was like the complete opposite. It was right in the face of a thought, I lack X, Y, and Z. The knowing that there is no one to lack. You are inherently fulfilled. Lack never existed, yet the mind continues on its, program, which I also find very interesting, because it's like the mind doesn't learn. It doesn't learn with this thing that's learned or the thing that knows. It just can't. So it's beautiful to see that happen and to realize that even when this character, this imaginary dream character, was experiencing thoughts of lack, way before whatever happened, even then there was nothing. Just now. It's exactly now. There is literally not even a concept of progression or a concept of the mind clearing itself of desire or lack.
Yeah, exactly. I must clear my mind of these thoughts of lack.
Yes.
I must reach a point of fullness, which would come through the eradication of the thought of lack. It's so subtle.
Yes.
And it's true, like the conditioning can play out because it isn't a problem. It was never actually a problem. The only problem, so to speak, was the belief that you were the conditioning. So it's not even about getting rid of that.
Yes. You go from this idea of I will lose any concept of the mind. So the mind will lose any concept of lack, never crave anything or whatever. And you realize you've always been this all accepting thing, even of that human aspect. So nothing is denied. Like you said, thoughts of what was once labeled desire are welcome here. Anything is welcome. Even what was once called suffering is welcome because it's not suffering anymore. I mean, it never was.
That's it. And it's not that there's a person welcoming or including or making peace with or accepting.
Exactly.
You were always that open receptivity that holds all of your expressions. That was always the case.
Yes, that is it. That is what is. That is now, and that is you. And that's the foundation of everything. There's no resistance. And resistance is the only actual source of what we would call suffering. And once you realize that you are this all accepting yes to everything, there's no room for resistance.
No possibility of resistance. There could be the experience of resistance, but amazingly, the experience is not resisted.
Exactly.
Even the experience of resistance is allowed, not by anybody, but allowed to express as it does, while it does, until it dissolves.
Yeah, it just is. And this whole thing also sort of rips you out of the linear time frame. So you don't think, tomorrow this will be easier, or at least you don't believe it. There's only now in which this resistancelessness is. And that's also beautiful to think, I don't have to wait. The mind doesn't even have to wait for something to improve. You can even have the mind finally settle on the idea that now is all it has. It really brings one right into presence, even the mind. Beautiful. And that's exactly why you end up where you started, because you realize that where you started was never a problem to begin with. Where you start is where you end. They're the same thing. It's not even like they're separated in time. I started 5 years ago and I'm here now. I am 5 years ago and now.
Yeah, at once. There is nothing sequential or linear about time. The past, the present, the future, all appear now. They appear as facets of experience, nothing to do with actual time.
Exactly. I remember when I was still trying to awaken, whatever that would mean, I realized that my mind was perceiving stuff in time. I felt as though days were passing or hours were passing. And so I began to look at the trees, because in my bedroom there are these big open windows and I can see the top of quite a few trees and they would blow in the wind. And I would look at the trees and think, are these trees blowing in time?
Yeah.
What evidence is there of these trees blowing in time if I look at them? And throughout doing that practice, soon the trees were blowing in this static now. And it's totally static, it's totally still. I mean, if it's not still, then something is still being thought and believed, but in conflict with what's actually being experienced. It's total peace, total stillness, the uncreated stillness, as Muji says.
And then you can discern the stillness in movement, discern the stillness in the movement of the trees. You can discern the silence in sound, the emptiness in form.
That's exactly, yes. Yes. It's completely representative of that duality. That duality that now seemingly is a choice. I can see the trees moving through this idea called time, because that's how the mind has been programmed. Or I can abandon that and see their true nature. And that is a choice. And it becomes very freeing when you realize that.
Yeah.
And the wholeness in the empty, the wholeness in the idea of empty, even the deepest sufferings, the deepest feelings of lack and emptiness, if you go into them, they carry this really strong whole element. There's something so solid.
Yes, even the experience of, anxiety, how do you know that anxiety? You know it through sensation, and delving into that sensation, you don't find anything like anxiety. You don't find somebody anxious there. You only find this vibrancy of this unnameable,
Yeah, it's this knowing. It's this knowing that morphs itself into what we consider pleasant and then morphs itself into what we consider unpleasant. But from the morphing's point of view, there's no such thing as pleasant or unpleasant. So inherently, the most severe feelings of anxiety, depression, are the same as the most ecstatic feelings of bliss and ecstasy. They're made of the very same thing. And like you say, there's no anxious person there.
No. And so when what the mind calls anxiety arises, what comes with that is this dread of being extinguished. I can't handle this. It will annihilate me. This will kill me, ultimately. Likewise, in the experience of depression, it has this kind of heavy darkness about it. It will suffocate me. And yet there's an invitation there to open to the heart of those appearances. And in identifying with anxiety, depression, you begin to desire aliveness, begin to desire life. I want to live. I want to feel fully alive. Yet there's this thing that feels dreadful, scary, and it seems to imply that I'm going to lose life. I'm going to lose my vitality. Yet if you inquire into that arising, what do you find other than aliveness? That which you seek is present.
Yes, you're in the state, and yes, you think it's unbearable. I can't handle it, but there's something that's bearing it. Something is already handling it. Something is holding it. Even at the peak of your sort of tipping point, and you think, I can't go on one moment longer. Right before you said that, you were already going on a moment longer, because that thing that says, I can't go on a moment longer is not you. It's the thing that's already holding both. It's holding the situation and holding the thoughts of I can't go on. It's just this wholeness.
Yeah.
And even in anxiety, even if you get enlightened, you wake up, if this body mind that what is happens to wake up into had anxiety before, it's likely that that program might still continue. So you might still find the body going through what you once considered anxiety, but now You realize it's being held by the presence. It's being held by what is. It is bearable because it is being bared.
Absolutely. And its nature is what you are. The nature of that thing, that experience being held, is equal to, well, all. And it's aliveness. And it's life itself. And yes, it's being held by life itself. And you are life itself. It's not even being held on your behalf, like you are holding it and you don't even know it. It's not unbearable. It may be experienced as hard to bear, but it's not unbearable. Nothing is unbearable.
Exactly. And that realization, the realization that even then, you are what you are and you are what you've always been, frees you. You don't get freed from anxiety. You get freed from thinking that anxiety is you. And then eventually you get to a stage where you realize that anxiety is you, but not in the way you thought.
Yeah.
Anxiety is life. It's just another manifestation. And we call it that, but really all it is perception, right? It's sensation. Some thoughts we've deemed bad. But to who?
Yeah. And what is sensation but sensing? What is thought but thinking?
Exactly.
And what is sensing and thinking but awareness or experiencing or consciousness or just this unnameable you-ness?
Exactly. Yes, if one really stays true to one's experience, like it's you are this experience. And in these very strong emotions, that becomes very clear, but it's interpreted the wrong way. So often if we feel overcome by dread, overcome by bliss, we literally feel we are that dread and we are that bliss. It's like this, that emotion is infinite in size. And that is actually true. You are it, but it just shouldn't be interpreted.
Right. You are it, and it is infinity.
Exactly.
The anxiety is infinity, and so are you, and you're not separate. That you and the anxiety are not two. And that's good, because if you're two, then there's a reason to go to war. There's a reason to be in conflict and a reason to fear. But if you are it and it is you, then there's no problem.
Exactly. Yes. That's a crucial step. It's a crucial step, isn't it? Because so many of us stop there. We stop halfway. We say, I am the presence of awareness. I am not this anxiety. I am the observer of it. And then we immediately draw this invisible opposition line between ourselves, the so-called witness, and the anxiety, so that we are seemingly cut off from whatever happens in the body. And it's okay for halfway step, but it doesn't fulfill you. You don't realize that you're inherently fulfilled. You constantly feel like you have to uphold this witness position. As soon as something arises, oh, there goes the barrier. Put the barrier up. I'm the witness of everything. And there's everything, and here's me, awareness.
Exactly.
You really have to take that witnessing into the experience that you're separating yourself from, and see that that very experience is made of the witness, made of the witnessing. Then you're done.
If you are aware of it, it can't be you. It's true, but it's not the whole truth. It's better to say, if you are aware of it, you can't be ultimately defined by it. It can't capture your entirety. Nothing can.
Yes.
If you're aware of a thought or a sensation or anything, how the mind is conceptualizing that, defining it, can't be what you are. It's way too small. That concept, way too small. And it's like experientially trying to squash yourself into that little speck.
Yes, exactly. And it's also very limiting. You've got this massive experience, You've got all of this going on, and now you must compartmentalize yourself into that which is aware of it.
Right.
You know, it's an escape. It's like the safe room, but you are not giving yourself to life. You know, really embodying it and realizing that this is one thing. And like you say, as soon as we conceptualize it, as soon as we call it awareness, as soon as we call it consciousness, we are already trying to fit our experience into this mold. Like whatever the mind thinks awareness is, okay, I'm aware, so I'm knowing. Whatever the mind thinks consciousness is, so then it might link to what makes dreams, sleeping dreams. Let me try project that onto my experience now. And these might be like rightful steps into getting there, but it's not an ending point.
Yeah, there aren't objects and awareness or objects in awareness. The objects are awareness. And at that point, how can you then make that separation between objects and subjectivity, or objects and consciousness? It's a way for the psychology to believe it can escape. When life gets really hard and you hear about this screen of awareness, this emptiness that you are, in which all of this temporary stuff arises, you know, often great resonance there. It's like, yeah, there's something true about that, something very familiar. It's something sort of homely about that and comforting. But then it's like the psychology hijacks that and it's used as a coping mechanism.
Yes, exactly.
To avoid life. And actually, that's the worst thing you can do. Avoiding life is the worst thing you can do, because you're only avoiding yourself. And what you really, really are seeking is life.
Exactly.
And thankfully, life is anywhere you go. It's even in the most awful experience. And it provides a way into the heart of what you seek.
And if you stick with that witness stage, you're never going to go into the deepest, darkest emotions. You're never going to see what they are. You're never going to have that mirror held up and see they are you. And that's the cure. That's what everyone wants. I mean, imagine the deepest feelings you're only facing yourself. What a relief. I don't want to be the witness of something. Still the witness of something that I still think is terrible, horrible, awful. I survived a panic attack last night because I was in witness position. You're not supposed to be surviving. It's not like you're supposed to just be coping in witness position. You're supposed to be thriving as what is.
Yeah, I'll just settle for surviving, and I'll use this spiritual detachment, this sanctified anesthetic to numb the pain of existence, when actually, you know, inquire into the pain of existence.
Yeah, inquire into what you call pain. Inquire into what you call bliss. It levels the playing field. You're not fighting anyone except yourself. You're not ever seeing anything except yourself. No reason to fight, no reason to resist. And resistance can take place, but like you said, it's not resistance.
It's not resistance if it's fully allowed by what you really are.
Exactly. And I think what's important is, as soon as you settle on a label, as soon as you wake up one morning and think, I am the presence of awareness, move on, look deeper. If the next week, one morning you wake up and think, okay, objects are made of me, move on. You know, carry on until you have nothing to say, until you wake up one day with nothing to say, because you can't.
Yeah.
There are no labels for you. Not one of them comes close to describing what is. And you just have to keep transcending whatever step, this illusory step you think you're in, like a stage or whatever. Transcend it, go further.
Yeah, don't settle. Insights come, realizations happen, and in your holding on to them and adding them to your sense of self, the richness therein kind of gets spoiled.
Exactly.
And it seems to obscure the truth of what is. So as you say, celebrate, be open to insights, to recognition, and then let it go. This is where it gets subtle again, that, you can't let it go. Just know that it will pass. Everything passes.
Yes, have a deep knowing of the transient nature of experience. All experience that includes your stages of awakening or what you think you are. Doesn't mean that you need to dismiss it. It's part of the process. But in not clinging to anything, in letting things be here for as long as they are here, and if they leave, you're fine. You're in the flow of life. Life doesn't want to keep anything. If it stays, it stays. If it goes, it goes. And if you're in tune with that, you're free.
Yeah, there's freedom in that flow. True freedom.
Exactly.
Nothing is static. Yet, what is most consistent is this flow of life.
Yes, and that letting go, or letting things come and letting them go as they please, that really frees you from the idea that anything you as a person could ever have, solid marriage, unsolid marriage, money, job, none of that is accepted or rejected, and none of it is held onto or let go of. You don't claim any of it. So anything that happens in this play of life, you're in tune with that letting go-ness and that acceptance of things for as long as they are here. No false identity can be stripped from you. I mean, people commit suicide because they lose their jobs. Because having the job has built a little, self-concept. As soon as you lose that, you literally feel as though you've lost yourself. And it's because of that clinging. It's because of that clinging to this job is me and not connecting to that flow.
Absolutely. And these little self-concepts are coming and going all the time. And when these somewhat substantial self-concepts are lost, like through the loss of a job or a relationship, right there's an opportunity to ask that question, who am I? It really brings you to that question, that inquiry in a very profound way, because there's a loosening in the structure of what you're taking yourself to be.
Exactly. And that who am I question is relevant at every so-called stage. The who am I question is relevant when you think your awareness. Who am I really? You can wake up one morning and seemingly not be able to connect to being aware. It can appear as though that's just absent. So if you can't find that box you put yourself in for months, what does that say about what you are? Are you not still what you are? Despite the seeming inability to locate the awareness, you just can't fit into that box today. And that's intuition speaking, that you are not that. I wake up one morning and I don't feel like consciousness. Why don't you feel like the label consciousness? Because you're not. You are what is.
Mm.
And so if you put yourself in a box. If you say, I'm the presence of awareness, whatever, I'm the presence of awareness, I am love, I am peace, all those labels. If you choose any of those, as soon as you have an experience which is in conflict with what you called yourself, your reality will fall apart. You will feel like you've lost yourself again, like with the job, the relationship. So these are just more subtle, non-dual objects. You call yourself love, and then you have this massive fight with your neighbor because the dogs are barking. Oh my goodness, now I'm not love. Now what am I? Don't stop on a label. Don't stop on any label that can be taken away from you. It's exactly the same as with any other object. Don't stop on the label of mother. Don't stop on the label of partner, awareness, consciousness, anything. You need to find that thing which cannot be taken away from you. And all of those labels are transient. They're all phases, every single one of them. And you think you've hit it, you think, I am done now, I am awareness. Even if you see everything as awareness, I promise you, you're going to realize that you are not. There's going to be a moment where you realize this is not quite aware. It's not quite what we associate with that word. This is not quite consciousness. And you're going to feel lost.
And it seems the mind, which is thought, is so compelled by these ideas, especially these, what it deems as higher ideas, spiritual ideas, awareness, I am Brahman, I am whatever, and yet an opposing experience or concept comes your way and it shatters that, and it's like, great, you're teaching yourself that you can't hold on to any self-concept, not even the highest. And that's wonderful. There's a relief in that, experientially. You don't have to hold on to anything. You don't have to stay in the present moment.
Exactly. That's another thing that's so valid. Everyone says they are the present moment, and I get so many messages and they're all asking, how do I stay present? And as soon as they're out of presence, they feel like they've lost themselves because somewhere someone told them you are the present moment, which is right, but it's, like you say, a half-truth. Lose that sense of presence, because that sense of presence and the sense of not presence is held by what you are. Both are you.
It is always both and, yeah. You're always everything. You are always what is, but not limited to what is appearing
exactly
in the now. And that now is a timeless now.
Yes, it is.
Now is not a point in time. It's not that little gap between the ticking of the hand on the clock. It just isn't, here is not a place.
Yes, exactly. I mean, here would be a place in comparison to where exactly? Who's ever been to a place called there? We've only ever been here. And I mean, being here, it's not even two different things. It's not even someone to be here. You are hereness.
Hereness is the same as nowness, and it has nothing to do with time and location. If it does, then you're in trouble, because then you'd have to try and find a certain kind of here and try and get into there now.
Yes.
As if you could escape it, as if you could lose it, as if you could stop being here. This is the wrong here.
Yes, you go sit on your meditation cushion and you're like, I have to be here in this room with these windows and the dogs barking outside. I have to be here. It's very like local. So like you say, the mind goes and finds a here that fits its description of here. And then we also get attached to the here. We meditate in a specific room. We feel thrown off when we have to go somewhere else. Have to go away with family for the weekend because that's not our comfortable here-ness. That's not the here-ness that we have labeled our here. Wherever the body goes, that's here. There's no personal here. And there's no personal now. I remember looking at a clock a few weeks ago, and for the first time, as the hands were ticking, they weren't representative of anything. Your whole life you look at a clock, you're like, oh no, 2 hours away from dinner time, which means I have to go and cook supper, 8 hours away from having to submit my report by the deadline. So in realizing that clock is ticking in no time, that clock is ticking in the static now, and it's not made of anything but that. It doesn't even have its own implications. In realizing that, there's so much freedom. It doesn't mean anything. And along this path, slowly but surely the mind will stop attributing meaning, personal meaning to all these things. So eventually you'll look at a clock and, like I say, you're not going to see the implications of the clock. You're not going to see in however much time I need to do this and I'm so stressed and all of that. It's just a clock. And even then it's not a clock. It's just seeing. And seeing is just whatever you make of it, knowing, consciousness, awareness. And that's also freeing. When the mind sort of plays a part in this, it's won over somehow. We manage to convince us, whatever this is, these sets of thoughts, that it doesn't need to hold on to personal interpretations of things anymore. It doesn't need to claim it.
No. And yet can play with claiming it, you know.
Exactly.
And it's something sort of celebratory. It's a celebration of these expressions. It's like they're kind of reclaimed. It's like, oh yeah, it's life being so mountain-like. I'm not convinced that it's only a mountain. Clearly it's not only a mountain, this appearance. Yet how amazing that life can appear that way. And that could be said for anything. So there's a loosening, there's a letting go of what you believe to be absolute. And then there's this playful exploration of all of this. And that's wonderful.
Yes, it's exactly that. It's you first deny everything. You go through this process of neti, and, you know, I'm not this, I'm not the mind, I'm not the thoughts, I'm not the mountain, I'm not, and you separate from it. And once you sort of establish what you are, you go back and you look at the mountains, you go back and you look at everything that you said wasn't you, and it's met like a mirror.
Yeah.
It's met in this vibrance, by this vibrancy, and it's life looking at life now. It's not me, a person, or seemingly me, a person looking at a mountain. It's life in the form of whatever this is, looking at itself in the form of whatever that is. And so there's not even a line. It's not even a line to draw between what's looking and what's being looked at. And that's that celebration. It's really the collapse of the separation. No you, no mountain, just life. And so you can claim as much as you like, just for the play, because this is life claiming life. Don't give any personal meaning to this claim. That's just happening.
Yeah. It's not like let go. It's just don't try to hold on.
Yeah, it's very subtle, isn't it? You know, the mind just wants to turn it into activity. It's either, you know, you have to let go of everything, abandon everything, or you have to, you know, embrace it, or it interprets it like if something leaves you, just be stoic about it and just handle it. And it's none of that.
No, it's not. It's always a noticing, isn't it? It's a noticing of this, for lack of a better word, this existing acceptance.
Yes.
This existing embrace, this existing holding, a noticing of this existing release and dissolution of every arising. It's always a noticing. That's all built into this. It's not something you have to do or not do.
Yes, you're right. You're right. It is a noticing. We want to say, do this, do that. But it's actually just noticing what happens inevitably. And if from the start we notice it, instead of trying to stop it or start it or hold on, if we just notice what is happening, obviously life wants it this way. That's a rationalization, but it's true, sort of.
Yeah, it will do. I mean, it's a temporary assumption, and it's not a bad one. Right now, this is how life is appearing, and how can it be any other way?
Exactly.
There's an inevitability about it. There's an actuality, an isness about this present appearance. So how can that be wrong? I mean, we're talking about reality here. We're talking about life. So if all is that, then how can any of it be out of place?
Yes, out of place in comparison to what? You know, you can't compare what is with another what is, because there's only one what is. So you can't say this what is stupid compared to that what is, or this what is upsetting me compared to that what is. What is what is, and there's only one. There's like this vibrant inevitability. What is happening, will happen. It just is. And we navigate through this isness, through this humanity. We come from this level of the human mind, and we can make rationalizations and we can say, this is happening for a better cause, or, things are only bad now because they're going to improve later. And all these things, all these attempts at explaining that what's happening now is more than okay. Those stories get us somewhere. If we narrow them down, eventually you're just left with what is, with no story. But it's really interesting navigating from a mind as well.
Yeah.
You've got this idea of awakening and stuff, and the way that people speak about it is, it's so pure that the mind has this concept of its disillusion and that it's not going to continue in its play. And it's just amazing to navigate what is not as a separate thing, navigating what is while encompassing this human aspect that so many people deny. It's fully embracing everything, fully embracing like the playful claiming, fully embracing even that which does not want to let go. So it's not as if you have to become this person who just doesn't attach to anything. The person, the complex, the concept of person can attach, but that's not what you are. And so you embrace both of these aspects, and in that embracing, they really show themselves to be just one thing. They're just part of what is. They are what is. And you come full circle, like we said before. And you find what you were looking for in the last place you ever thought to look.
Yeah, you find here. You find now, and they're not two. They were what you were looking for. Now, here is home, and you're never not home.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, you are home itself. It's the isness, it's the actuality, the suchness that you are and all is. You're searching for that in time and seemingly overlooking it here and now, but absolutely not, because how could you? Your seeking is part of the suchness.
Yeah, that's the paradox, isn't it? That's exactly why everyone says that no one wakes up, or before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Because you've been running around in your house looking for home. This entire time, you've been what is, looking for what is. And that's part of what is. There was never anything wrong with the seeking. There's never anything wrong with the play. So how can you say that any stage of anything is actually ever wrong? And that's something I really find pressing in teaching and speaking to people on Instagram. Because how do you tell someone to do something when you know that whatever's happening is the way it should be? And it's perfect, but it's not felt as perfect for the person asking. You have to enforce this idea of seeking, hoping that maybe they'll see what they are. But you know that seeking itself is not even really needed. It's just the human mind's idea of what should be. Yeah, we should all seek. We should all discover ourselves, but that's absolutely not true.
No, and that search is based on the perception of lack. It's not only this moment, this here, this now lacks something. It's I lack something. I am lacking. I am lack itself. And I must therefore search.
Exactly.
Read the right books, go to the right satsang, do the right practice, not just in those forms, but in many different forms. And maybe all of that is just life exploring itself, not for any particular purpose, just because that seems to be what life does. It explores.
Yeah. It creates this sense of lack in identifying with something other than here and now. So that complex, the mind is always sort of looking to fulfill this lack in a space other than here and in a time other than now. So it's identifying the fulfillment that it seeks within those two paradigms. And as long as it does that, it'll never find it because you are here now. So it's exactly that. It's exactly the forgetting of the hereness and forgetting of the nowness, which when you forget the hereness, you think you need to go to a satsang, you need to go to an ashram. That's you forgetting your hereness. If you forget your nowness, you think things will be better in the future. Things will be better when I get that job. That's you forgetting your nowness. And that's nowness and hereness forgetting nowness and hereness. It's a paradox.
Yeah, and where does that forgetting of the hereness take place? Here. And here is not a place. So even saying where is not relevant there. When does it happen? That forgetting of now, it happens now. And even saying when doesn't apply because now is not a time.
Yes.
If now is a time and here is a place, then yeah, there's cause for seeking and there's a reason to worry. But it's not. This now is here, is full. This here is equal to where you are. You're in South Africa and I'm in the UK, and yet it's the same here. Here in the UK, yes. It's 10 past 12. Where you are, it's a different time, yet it's the same now. The listeners listening to this are in the same now also, or in the same here also.
Exactly. And if hereness forgets itself in hereness, is it really forgetting? And if nowness forgets itself in nowness, is it really forgetting anything? Is there really any problem? There's no problem. There's not even forgetting is a problem. It is just here now.
Mm.
Even the projection of the mind's ideas of us being in two different places, that's not even a disconnect from the here. That's happening here. That identification or that construct is happening here now. So really, the more absolute you get, the more subtle you get, the more quiet you get, the less you have to say. It's a knowing beyond the concept of knowing. It can't even be called knowing. So you were never not awake, literally. And if that is the way that you've perceived it, that's fine. But even in not perceiving it that way, you were never not awake.
Well, there's only wakefulness. It's like, how can you not be awake? That's the question. Can you hear these words, these sounds? Is there hearing? Can you feel the sensations of the surface on which you sit? Is there sensing? And do you have to do any of that? Awareness is just wide open, fully, vividly awake, and can't be otherwise. And it's not dependent on the functioning of the mind, the body. It's not a product of some process in cognition. You can't not be awake.
It's really total freedom, innate, inherent freedom from day one. You almost feel like you could kick yourself. I could kick myself for not seeing this. And then you tell people that and you say the reason why you can't find it is because it's so easy, and they don't believe you, and they have to go on their own journey to reach the same conclusion and think, oh my goodness, everyone told me it was so easy, but I was just scrambling, looking everywhere else when it was right here, hidden in plain sight. Every time you get disillusioned, every time you face the fact that what you wanted did not bring you what you sought, that's a mini glimpse, basically. You could practically say it's a glimpse. And it's going to carry on teaching you until you see it for what it is. It's not something nice to say, but in my experience, you really do lose everything that you claim in some way. You might not even lose it in a dramatic sense. Perhaps you just think this partner is going to make you so happy. Maybe you lose them, they break up with you. Or you get this car that you thought was going to make you so happy, and you get disillusioned, and that is a loss. You are losing something. So it's almost as if life has been wired this way to, in a way, take away from us everything that we claimed. everyone dies. If you fall in love with someone, even if you're together for the rest of your life, someone has to die. You will lose that. And like I said, it's a scary thing to say, but it's also very comforting to know that I will never be able to hold on to something.
Yeah.
That's comforting. It sounds bad, but there's a comfort in that. Okay, I don't need to start trying now. I know I will never keep whatever makes me happy forever. Either it makes me happy forever and I lose it, or I lose the happiness that I derived from it. Go toward that which is eternally what you seek. And then all those other things can come and go. It doesn't really matter. People often, will approach me and they'll say, I was feeling so present. I was feeling so blissful. I'd realized the self, and now this morning I lost it. Like I got it, I lost it. And if you can lose it, it is not you. That is like a fact. So even in this loss, what is here in this apparent loss? You've now lost yourself. You've lost your enlightenment. What is here in this lost enlightenment? This so-called lost enlightenment is literally beaming with the light of enlightenment.
Totally. Yeah. You are that enlightening factor that enlightens the experience of lack of enlightenment. That animating quality that births and holds that experience. It's there in the very imagining that you've lost it.
Exactly. If you let these thoughts come, I lost it or whatever, I'm not feeling present today, I'm feeling angry, I'm not blissful, I don't feel one with everything. If you just let them come and go, you'll realize that what they're coming and going in is what you thought you had and lost. It was just coupled with this experience probably that your mind sort of latched onto. And then it thought, I am this bliss. I'm going to be this bliss forever. And what a big fright when it doesn't last. And that's just another pointer to that's not you. It's just guiding you. It's narrowing it down again and again. That's not you. That's still not you. Even this ecstatic feeling of bliss, even this really peaceful oneness is not you, not you. And then eventually when you completely narrow it down into nothing, it collapses and it's all you. But you can't believe that. You can't tell your mind that. You can't be like, oh my goodness, that tree is me. You can't. It's not something that you can induce.
And as soon as you do, and as soon as you have that as a concept, then, you're going to lose it. So you're back to square one.
Exactly. You're going to wake up and you're going to look at the tree and be like, I don't feel like I'm one with the tree anymore. What happened?
What was that secret formula? What was that special concoction in experience that made that happen?
Yeah, that must be it. Yeah. And then you go and try to replicate it and you never can, because that was just that moment. That was now, then. If you are what you are, even if you lose it in death, if you can lose it in death, right, then it's not you. So if you can lose any practice, obviously you will lose all practices. When the body dies, you lose your retreats. You presumably lose the feelings of bliss and ecstasy and all these human experiences. If that can be lost with death, it cannot be you.
It's a great pointer, but then the mind has to sabotage it, because that's how it works. It's like on one level, the mind knows it's insubstantial because it's just a bunch of transient thoughts.
Absolutely.
And no thought stays around. It can't ever claim one thought to be itself. So it works to keep perpetuating more and more thoughts to cover over that fact.
Yeah, it doesn't handle its disillusion very well. We've made the mind the king for most of our lives. This constant thinking, literally your life is thinking. Even your relationships are based on what you think. And so mind was literally the ruling party in this experience for so long. And just to be seen through as, from this powerful thing that could make and create and destroy everything, to being seen for a bunch of thoughts floating in empty space. It's disillusioning the ego. From all powerful to being seen for what you are. And at the same time, it wants to be seen for what it is. At the same time, it also has this pull toward grace. I mean, it's only the mind that takes you on retreats and takes you to India and stuff. It longs for its own death, but at the same time opposes it.
Exactly. What's your greatest fear? Death. What's your greatest desire? Life. And to truly live, you have to die. You have to see beyond all of what you believe yourself to be by noticing all of what you're not limited to.
Yes.
Effortlessly. So true life is death. Death and life are equal. They're not opposites.
Yes. I often feel like I'm dying every moment. In a way, you feel like you die to every moment. In every moment, there is something that dies and then, rises again and dies. In everything that's seen through, in everything that the mind says that you see is not, what you thought it was, or in that moment, something dies. It is literally a death. I mean, if we can call the body stopping existing a death, we can call this disillusion every single moment a death. You are continually dying to yourself. New self-concepts. Yesterday you might have thought of yourself as this really kind person. Then you got into a fight with someone, and this morning you think, I'm a horrible person. That self-concept of the kind person has died. So you are dying all the time. You just don't realize it. So death is really not it's nothing to fear. You are dying now. You have died 1,000,000 times.
Yet that which you are beyond what can die can never die.
Exactly. You are dying in life. The idea of yourself is dying again and again in what you are, actually.
And no idea can last. You can't maintain any idea. Who were you 5 minutes ago? Can you tell me? Can you give me a concise account of who you were 5 minutes ago? It's impossible.
That idea is dead, yeah. And when the body dies in this material world, that is exactly the same. It's just another concept of yourself that's dying in what you are. As from day one, the body is simply a concept. And like you say, no concept can last. The body has to die. It's not something to be scared of.
No, because you can't die. You yourself can't die.
Yeah, and yet that is something you can't know with your mind. Your mind will always say, someone died, you are going to die. It'll always speak in that language, but the felt intuition is what's actually speaking. And that's also something you can't explain to people. Like, show me the proof that I don't die. I can't. You have to see it for yourself, mate. Come on. It's a felt knowing. It's like, oh, wow. Despite my mind running in the background and saying I could die in a car accident tomorrow, that'll go on. But it's known I do not die. And I'm never born.
No, you were never born. I can show you a photograph of you as a child, or talk about your first birthday, or what was going on in the world at the time of your birth. But you are born afresh every moment. And actually, there's only one moment, and it's timeless. It's like being rapidly rebirthed, or the old dying.
Yes. So you have this concept of yourself as maybe like a generous person. Then you'll pass a beggar on the side of the road and remember, oh, I'm a generous person. And then you'll give them money. But it's almost as if once you stop sticking to all these like narratives, your behavior can like chop and change, and sort of confusing to the mind that thinks there was a consistent person there, someone with actual, traits. And I mean, some do hold, some do sort of outlive the whole awakening thing, but really nothing sticks. You could realize you're Hitler literally in the next moment. There's literally nothing to stick to. So it's really a death and a rebirth. Like you say, every moment you're something new. And at the same time, every moment you're the same thing that you've been the entire time.
It is that which you can't lose. It is that which remains when all else dissolves inevitably. That is you. And in not knowing what it is, what it's called, we can call it life. It's an okay word. It's life. In the spiritual search, we may look for the end of the ego, look to kind of reach a point where I am no thing, I'm awake. Meanwhile, there's coming and going, there's birth and death of ideas. And so it's always happening anyway. The psychology doesn't like this, but the package deal here in that effortless spiritual practice is that it includes like a nice self-ideal, like I'm a good person, I'm a charitable person, I'm a loving partner. It includes that, but it also includes the opposites of those things. So, as you said, the next moment, it could be you go from a loving partner to a resentful person.
Yeah.
So that's the deal. Like, you can't pick and choose. Just see that there's no lasting concept that can be you. And nothing is detrimental, nothing is absolute, because nothing lasts. Nothing can define you. And life can be anything. What you are can be anything, and is okay actually with it being anything. There's no right and wrong in any of those things. There's no spiritual or whatever the opposite of spiritual is, which is nothing. There's no opposite of spiritual. All is spiritual, if you want to use the word in the right way.
Like you say, these concepts, if you just let them come and go, it's fine. But as soon as you identify as, a loving partner, it's going to shock you when you lash out and throw a plate across the kitchen, because you thought you were loving. Like, what is this behavior? I don't know who I am. I feel so out of control. I don't know what's going on. I'm normally so affectionate. It's just another pointer to the fact that you are not a loving person, as bad as that sounds, but you're also not a destructive person. It's just the shifting and the morphing and the shaping of experience and changing, and these plays of conditioned behavior, which will go on for a little while. And some dissolve and some don't. But the point is that none of them are labels for you.
No, none of those are labels. And their coming and going is itself this disillusioning truth of life.
Yeah, you're being forced to face truth again and again.
Meanwhile, you're looking for the ideal teacher. You're trying to find that right book or find that satsang that will bring you to self-realization beyond your limited identities. And they're all coming and going all the time. Nothing sticks. Yeah.
And you get the feeling that you get at a retreat, and you walk out the door and it's gone. And now I must go to a retreat again and again and again. Face your truth head on. That you cannot hold on to anything. Anything that can be held, you actually can't hold on to.
Yeah.
There's no longer this idea of like a separate thing that's like fueling all this stuff and perpetuating it. And if these behaviors arise, they're truly arising out of, like, similar to muscle memory. There's not some little me that feels like it's lacking something that's propelling the behavior. And because of that, you're inclined to encounter far less turbulent behavior. It can only get weaker, like you say. With the exception of this initial awakening process where all the emotions are coming up full force and everything needs to be seen. Apart from that, once all of that is done, and these conditioned behaviors can only run at less power than the time before, and less and less, all the same, then that's fine. But the idea is not to go on a spiritual journey where you purify the conditioning. That's not the point. It's literally, if everything stays exactly the same, that is perfectly fine. It is of no concern to anyone. There's no one resisting any behavior. And so it really doesn't matter. You shouldn't wait for anything to fall away. And often the things you wait to fall away don't. So even if you stick to loving your conditions, I mean, you're employing then another degree of attachment to them. And in a way, what's going to happen in the next moment when you really don't love them? You know, if a conditioned behavior destroys a relationship, I mean, geez, I thought I was enlightened, and now what is going on? I thought I was working so hard on loving those dark parts of myself. And now look, you know, that's all just a story. It's definitely a story. It doesn't hold any validity. It seems to describe a pattern. It seems to describe some attachments fall away. So we say, oh, it must be the body purifying itself, or, oh, I must be learning to love the dark parts of myself. But that's all part of achieving an image again. You know, you realize that there's very little, identification left. And then mind projects like this idea of one day I'm going to be this like I again. Now it's bringing that I back, and the I is going to be enlightened, and the I is going to never do bad things, and all of that. And a lot of the spiritual journey is enforcing that idea that one day you will reach this purified, enlightened place. And right now you're tolerating your conditions, but you know they're going to disappear eventually. You know, that is literally, it's the epitome of not here now. You're again projecting. It's just under the spiritual guise now. It's like it's pretending that it's helping you on this journey. You're going to be so clear. You're going to literally be Buddha. You know, Buddha was definitely not even close to the image that your mind has. And that's just another goal that'll never be reached. And you just have to realize that. And this integration can happen. You know, it can happen without a doer. And then you can reach these states of, you know, more cleansed or more open, more peaceful, less attached, but that is not the point. You never get what you want, and that's what's beautiful. I'm never going to get what I want. Like, instead of saying that in a, you know, disparaging way, say it in, I'm never going to get what I want. How fantastic is that? And the one thing that can't be held is what is always here. Something you actually will keep, yet not yours. And we sort of think because we can't grasp it, that it's not here. It's like, no, but how is it my true nature if I can't hold it in my hand? You know, there's this inclination of the mind to encapsulate awareness and view it, you know, oh, this is me. And you can't because you are it, looking for it.